The space around him was silent, the kind of silence that pressed against the skin and filled the lungs with heavy air. The human sat inside his broken pod, the lights flickering weakly, the oxygen level dropping bit by bit, and his stomach twisting in pain because he had not eaten for 2 days. In front of him was only one sealed packet, the last meal he had, and he knew once that was gone, there would be nothing left. No more food, no more energy, only the slow wait for death. He leaned back, staring at the black void outside the cracked glass. Stars scattered like silver dust across endless darkness. His hands trembled as he picked up the meal packet. His lips dry, his body weak, his thoughts heavy. He whispered to himself, "This is it, this will keep me alive a little longer." But then, something strange happened, a sound, faint at first, almost like a whisper carried by the cold void. He froze, eyes wide, ears straining, and then he heard it again, soft and fragile yet clear, a voice saying, "I'm hungry." His heart skipped, his breath caught. He looked around, thinking maybe his mind was breaking under hunger and loneliness. Maybe it was just his imagination. But no. The voice came again, a little louder this time, trembling and weak. "I'm hungry." He forced himself to stand. His body heavy, his legs shaking, he moved to the window, pressing his face close to the cracked glass. And then he saw her, floating just outside the pod, a small figure in a thin suit no bigger than a child, her body glowing faintly with soft blue light, her movements slow and weak, as if she was moments away from death. The human could not believe his eyes. Was this real? Was this some hallucination created by his starving brain? He rubbed his eyes, shook his head, but the tiny figure remained, her face pale, her big eyes filled with fear, and yet they also carried something else, a silent plea, a desperate need. His mind raced. Who was she? Where had she come from? How could someone so small survive out here in the cold, endless void? Could this be a trap? Could this be some strange alien trick to lure him out and kill him? He did not know, but the sight of her tiny hand pressing weakly against the glass of his pod shook him deeply. He could see her lips move, again whispering the same words, "I'm hungry." Inside him a storm began. One part of him screamed to hold on to the last meal. It was his only chance. Without it he would surely die. But another part of him, a quieter part, whispered that no matter who she was, no matter where she came from, she was a child, she was hungry, and she was dying. The human clenched his fist around the meal packet, his knuckles white, his breath quick, his stomach growling, his mind torn between fear and compassion. What should he do if he gave her the food? He would have nothing. If he kept it, he might live, but he would also watch her fade away right in front of his eyes. He closed his eyes, and in that moment memories flashed. Memories of his home, of his mother placing food on the table even when there was little, of his father saying that humans must never turn away from those in need, of the simple lesson he had carried since childhood. Protect the weak, share what you have. Kindness is what makes humans strong. His eyes opened again, and he looked at her, the tiny alien girl with glowing skin, trembling in the cold void, her eyes locked on his, filled with silent hope, waiting for an answer, waiting for mercy. The human pressed a button, and the small outer hatch unlocked with a low hiss. The air shifted, the light blinked, the girl flinched as the door slid open slowly. He reached out, holding the meal packet in his shaking hand, his voice hoarse but firm as he whispered, "Take it!" The girl's eyes widened. Her lips parted in disbelief. For a moment she did not move, as if she thought it was a dream. But then, with the last of her strength, she reached forward, her small hand touching his, and gently, she took the food as she held it close. A weak glow spread across her body, faint but real. Her eyes shimmered with tears. She looked at him and whispered once more, but this time not with fear, not with despair, but with gratitude. "Thank you." The human sat back, his stomach empty, his body weaker than before, yet his heart heavy with something else. Not regret, not fear, but an unspoken feeling that this moment, this choice, would change everything. Outside, the stars burned silently, watching, as if the universe itself had paused to witness the encounter between a dying man and a hungry alien child. And so, the story began with a whisper, with hunger, with kindness, in the cold, endless dark of space. The tiny alien girl sat inside the pod now, her small hands clutching the food packet, as if it were the most precious treasure in the universe. Her glowing skin flickered like a fading candle. Her breaths came in short gasps, yet her eyes never left the human who had given her everything. The human sat across from her, his body weak, his stomach screaming in pain, his throat dry, and his mind trapped in a storm of thoughts. He had given away his last chance at survival. The last meal that could have kept him alive for a little longer. Now it was gone, and the hunger inside him grew heavier. Yet when he looked at the alien girl, so small, so fragile, so desperate, he felt something he could not explain. A strange warmth deep in his chest. The kind of warmth that came not from food or fire, but from choice. The girl tore open the packet with trembling fingers. She ate slowly, carefully, her lips moving as she chewed, her glowing eyes filling with tears. Each bite seemed to restore a little strength. Her shoulders lifted, her voice steadier now. She whispered, "You gave me this." "Why?" The human stared at her, his lips dry, his voice low. He said, "Because you were hungry." She tilted her head, confusion and wonder mixed in her expression. "But you are hungry too, I see it, I feel it. You needed this more than me, why give it away?" The human leaned back, his head heavy, his body weak. He closed his eyes for a moment and remembered the faces of people long gone, the family who raised him, the lessons he had been taught. Kindness was not about what you could afford to give. Kindness was about giving when you had nothing. He opened his eyes again and said softly, "Because no one should die hungry. Not while I can help." Her small glowing fingers froze halfway to her mouth. Her eyes widened, and for a moment she did not know how to respond. She had lived in a world where strength ruled, where the weak were left behind, where survival meant taking, not giving. And yet here was a human, half dead, starving, still choosing to give. It made no sense to her, and yet it filled her with a strange hope she had never felt before. The pod groaned around them, a reminder of the danger outside. The oxygen level continued to drop. The temperature fell, the lights dimmed, but inside the small space, there was something powerful, something unspoken. Two beings from different worlds sharing one choice, one act of kindness, one moment that defied the emptiness of space. The human's hands shook. He felt weaker with every passing minute, yet he did not regret, not even for a heartbeat. He watched the girl eat. And though his stomach burned with hunger, his heart felt stronger, because he knew he had done the right thing, even if it killed him. But deep inside, fear whispered, what if she was not what she seemed? What if she used his kindness against him? What if this was the mistake that ended his life sooner than hunger ever could? He pushed the thoughts away, but they lingered like shadows at the edge of his mind. Testing his resolve, the girl finished the food, her glow brighter now, her breathing steadier. She looked at him with wide, shimmering eyes. She pressed her small hand to her chest and whispered, "You saved me, I do not understand why, but I will not forget." "Never." Her words struck him like a promise, like a bond. He looked at her, seeing not just a fragile alien child, but something more, something hidden. He could not explain it, but he felt that his choice had touched a thread far larger than himself, as if the universe itself had been waiting for this moment, as if his hunger and her need had been woven together by fate. The human leaned forward, his voice weak but steady. "I had one meal. I chose to give it to you, that is all, nothing more." But the girl shook her head, her glowing hair floating around her face, her voice stronger now. "No, not nothing, everything. You gave life when you had none to spare. Humans are strange, but kind." The pod creaked again, the metal walls cold and unforgiving. Yet inside the air felt different, charged, alive. Something had changed between them. A bond formed not by blood, not by species, but by choice, by sacrifice, by a simple act of giving in the face of death. The human closed his eyes, exhaustion heavy, his body weaker than before. But in his chest there was no regret, only a quiet strength, only the certainty that what he had done was right. Outside, the stars continued to burn, watching silently as two lives, once strangers, were now tied together in ways neither of them yet understood. And so the choice was made. The meal gone, the hunger deeper, but something greater born, something that would carry them both into a future neither could yet imagine. The human sat slumped against the cold wall of the broken pod, his body weaker now, his breath heavy, his stomach empty, his hands trembling with fatigue. Across from him, the tiny alien girl glowed softly in the dim light, her eyes fixed on him, her small body no longer as fragile as before. The food he had given her was working. It was restoring her strength piece by piece. She sat silently for a while, watching him, studying him, as if trying to understand why a dying man would give life to someone else at last. Her voice broke the silence, gentle but steady. "Human, you gave me food when you had none for yourself. I do not understand why." The human raised his head, his eyes dull from exhaustion yet still carrying a spark of resolve. he whispered. Because you were hungry and I could not watch you die. The girl lowered her gaze, her glowing hair falling across her small face. She seemed to struggle with something inside her. Then she whispered, "Where I come from, kindness like this does not exist. The weak are left behind. The strong take what they want. Mercy is seen as weakness. But you are different. You chose to give, even when it meant death for yourself." The human's lips curved into the faintest smile. A tired, fragile smile, he said. "Maybe that is what makes us human." The girl lifted her eyes again, and in that moment something shifted. The glow of her skin grew brighter. The air inside the pod seemed to hum with unseen energy. The human felt the hair on his arms rise as if touched by static. His tired eyes widened slightly. Something was changing. Something he did not understand. The girl placed her hand on her chest, her small voice trembling. "I must tell you the truth. I am not what you think I am. I am not just a lost child drifting in space. I am more." The human frowned, confusion cutting through his exhaustion, his voice rough as he asked, "More? What do you mean?" She hesitated, her glowing eyes filled with conflict, as if speaking the words might change everything. Finally she whispered, "I am the last of my ship, but not the last of my kind. My people are old. Older than you can imagine. Older than your Earth's history. We do not die so easily. We are not children as you understand children. We are born small but carry within us the memory of ages. I am not helpless, not truly, but without energy, without life. I would have faded into nothing until you fed me. Until you gave me strength." The human's mind spun. His breath caught. He looked at her with disbelief. You are saying you are not a child." She shook her head, her glowing hair swaying. "No, not a child. I am young, yes. But my people are different. We grow slowly. We carry the wisdom of generations. My form may seem fragile, but my blood, my energy, my essence, it is ancient." The human's throat went dry, the weight of her words pressing against his mind. He had thought he saved a small, helpless girl, but instead, he may have saved something far greater, someone tied to powers and histories beyond his understanding. He whispered, "Then why were you here? Alone, drifting, starving?" Her eyes darkened, sorrow flooding her face. She whispered, "My ship was attacked. There was fire, screaming, chaos. I was placed in an escape pod, but it was damaged. I drifted for what felt like endless nights until I saw you, until I felt your presence." She pressed her hand against the wall of the pod, glowing symbols appearing faintly where her fingers touched. The human's eyes widened. The metal itself seemed to respond to her as if it recognized her, as if the pod was waking under her touch. Glowing patterns spread slowly across the walls like veins of light. The human whispered, awe in his voice, "What are you doing?" The girl turned to him, her eyes glowing brighter now. "You gave me life, now I will give you truth. My people are not only ancient, we are guardians of knowledge, of energy, of secrets hidden across the stars. And you, human, you are now part of it because you chose mercy. You chose kindness when you could have chosen survival, and that choice has changed everything." The human's chest tightened, his heart racing despite his weakness. He wanted to speak, to ask questions, but words failed him. He could only watch as the light spread across the pod, warming the cold metal, filling the space with an otherworldly glow. The girl's small voice cut through the silence, clear and sharp. "You saved me, but you do not yet understand what that means. You have touched a thread of fate. You have awakened something that cannot be undone. You will not die here in silence. Your story will not end in hunger. Not anymore." The human stared at her, his breath shallow, his body trembling with weakness, but in his heart a new flame flickered, fragile but real, the feeling that maybe, just maybe, his choice to give had opened a door to something greater than survival, greater than himself. And as the glow filled the pod, as the alien girl revealed her truth, the human understood one thing. This was only the beginning. The pod was no longer silent. It hummed faintly with the glow of strange patterns spreading across its walls. Soft lights pulsed like a heartbeat, steady and alive. The human stared at them in disbelief, his body weak, his stomach empty, yet his eyes wide with wonder. Across from him, the small alien girl sat quietly, her glowing hands folded in her lap, her gaze fixed on him as if waiting for his reaction, as if testing what he would do next. The human's throat was dry. His voice cracked as he whispered, "What are you doing to my ship?" The girl tilted her head, her glowing hair drifting gently around her small face. she said softly. Not harming, only speaking. Your pod listens, it responds to me because it feels the energy I carry. Energy older than your machines can understand. The human swallowed hard, his hands gripping the edge of his seat. Machines don't listen, they don't feel, they obey commands. They follow code, but you're making it alive. The girl's lips curved into a faint smile, a strange mix of sadness and curiosity. Perhaps to you it seems like magic, but to me it is simple, it is who I am. It is what my people are. We do not build only with hands. We build with essence, with life, with memory. The universe is not silent, human, it speaks. Only few can hear it. The human leaned back, his head heavy, his body trembling with hunger, yet his mind alive with questions. He whispered, "Why me? Why show me this? I am just a broken man in a broken pod, nothing more." The girl's eyes softened, her glow brighter. "No, not nothing. You gave me your last food. You chose kindness when you had nothing left. And because of that, I feel your heart, I see your soul. You are not like others. You are not blind to the pain of strangers. That is why I trust you." Her words cut deep. Deeper than he expected, the human closed his eyes. Memories flickered again. The faces of his family, his home, the lessons of compassion, all rushing back like whispers from a world he thought he had lost forever. He opened his eyes and looked at her, not as a stranger, not as a threat, but as something else, something important. The girl leaned closer, her tiny hands reaching out. She placed her palm against his chest, her touch warm, faint light seeping into his skin. The human gasped, his tired heart suddenly beating stronger, his mind sharper, his body less heavy. He looked down at her hand, glowing against him, and asked with a trembling voice, "What are you doing to me?" Her voice was soft, almost like a lullaby. "Sharing, giving as you gave to me. I return not food but energy. Life, it is small, for I am still weak, but enough to keep you awake. Enough to remind you that you are not alone." The human felt the warmth spread through him. Like fire in frozen veins, he exhaled deeply, his fear and doubt mixing with awe. He whispered, Why would you give back to me when you could keep it for yourself?" The girl's glowing eyes locked on his, steady and clear. "Because you taught me, kindness is not weakness, kindness is strength. You shared your life with me, I share mine with you. That is connection. That is bond." The human's chest tightened, his breath shaking. He had never heard such words from anyone, not even from his own kind here in the cold, endless void. It was not his people who reminded him of hope. It was this small alien girl with glowing skin and ancient blood. Around them, the pod continued to hum, lights shifting with their breaths, as if the very walls of the ship recognized the bond forming inside, as if the universe itself leaned closer to listen. The girl's voice grew quieter, more thoughtful. "I never thought I would see it. Not from another species. Not from a human, but I see it now. In you, something rare, something worth more than power. You are strange, human, strange, but kind, and that makes you strong." The human's lips curved into a faint smile despite his weakness. He whispered back, "Strange but kind. I think I can live with that." For a moment silence returned, but it was not the heavy silence of despair. It was softer, lighter, filled with unspoken understanding. The human leaned back, his body still weak but his heart steady. The girl sat beside him, her glow brighter, her presence no longer a burden, but a comfort. Together they sat in the small broken pod, surrounded by stars, two beings from different worlds, bound not by fear or survival but by something greater, by connection, by a choice that had sparked trust, by kindness that crossed the divide of species. And in that quiet, as the pod drifted through the dark, the human felt for the first time in many days that maybe, just maybe, he was not alone anymore, and that thought, more than food, more than strength, kept him alive, kept him waiting, kept him believing that their story had only just begun. The human drifted in half-sleep against the cold wall of the pod, his body heavy, his hunger biting deeper than ever, but his heart strangely calm. Across from him, the small alien girl sat in silence, her glowing hands resting in her lap, her eyes fixed on him. She watched every breath he took, every twitch of weakness in his tired face, and in those eyes there was no fear now. Only thought, only decision. She whispered softly, almost to herself, "He gave me life. Though he had none to spare, he gave when he should have kept. What kind of creature does this?" The human stirred, his eyelids heavy, his voice weak. "Talking to yourself?" She blinked, startled, then shook her head. her glowing hair floating gently. No, I'm talking to the stars, but they do not answer. So perhaps I am only speaking to myself. The human gave a faint laugh, broken and breathless. The stars never answer, trust me. I've been asking them for years. Her eyes softened, her head tilted, and then she rose, her small feet pressing lightly against the pod floor, her glow brighter than before. She stepped closer to him, her voice low but clear.
Human, you are fading. I can see it. Your body is weak.
Your hunger burns you from within. If I do nothing, you will die soon. He gave a tired smile, his lips cracked. I already knew that, but her voice grew sharper, urgent. No, you will not. Because I will not allow it. You gave me food. I give you life. That is balance. That is gift. Before he could respond, she knelt in front of him, her glowing hand reaching for his chest again, but this time it was different. The light in her palm was stronger, brighter, a soft golden fire pulsing like a living heart. He felt its warmth before she even touched him, the air thick with strange energy. His breath caught in his throat, his eyes widening. Wait, what are you doing? Her voice was steady, almost ceremonial. My people carry energy, not just for ourselves but for others when we choose. We can share, we can give. It is not food, but it is life, it is strength. And now I give it to you. Her palm pressed against his chest, and the light poured into him. At first it was like fire, hot and burning. His body jolted, his heart pounding wildly, his breath gasping. He wanted to pull away but could not. Then slowly the fire softened, became warmth, became strength. It flowed through his veins like a river. It filled his empty stomach with heat. It lifted the heaviness from his bones. It sharpened his fading mind. The human groaned, clutching at his chest, not in pain but in shock. He whispered through trembling lips, What are you? Giving me? The girl's face was calm, her eyes glowing brighter than ever. Life, human, I give you my life, as you gave me yours. The symbols on the pod walls flared brighter, strange markings that seemed alive. Pulsing in rhythm with his heart, he stared at them, astonished. What is happening to my ship? She answered, her voice soft but filled with ancient weight. It listens now, it feels your bond with me. It is no longer just metal. It is a vessel touched by my essence. It will carry us if it can, because it knows you chose mercy, and mercy changes all things. The human sat there in silence, his breath steady now, his strength slowly returning, his hunger no longer a fire but a shadow. He looked at her with disbelief, awe in his eyes. You gave me part of your life. Why risk yourself? Why weaken yourself for me? Her small face grew solemn. Because when you fed me, you risked everything. You had nothing but still gave. I cannot let that gift go unanswered. I cannot watch you fade while I live. That is not who I am, and it is not who you are. Our lives are bound now by choice, by sacrifice, by gift. The human's chest tightened, not from weakness, but from something else, a weight of emotion he could not explain. His throat thick, his eyes burning, he whispered, You don't even know me, why would you care? Her voice trembled, though her eyes stayed bright. Because you cared first. Because in the cold of the void you showed me warmth. Because you saw me as more than a stranger, more than a burden. You saw me as life, and that is something my people once knew but have long forgotten. Through you I remember. The human bowed his head, his breath shaking. The pod hummed louder, the lights brighter, the walls glowing as if alive. He realized then that something far greater than survival was unfolding, something ancient, something powerful. He whispered, What happens now? The girl looked out the window, her glowing eyes reflecting the endless stars. Now the universe will answer. It has seen what we did, and it will not stay silent. You have touched a thread of fate, human, and now the thread pulls us both forward. The human followed her gaze, out into the endless dark, and for the first time since his pod was broken, since his food was gone, he did not feel despair. He felt hope, fragile yet burning. The gift she gave him was more than energy. It was belief, the belief that he was no longer alone, and that their story had only just begun. The pod drifted quietly through the sea of stars, its walls glowing faintly with strange patterns left by the girl's touch. The human sat upright now, his strength returning little by little, his eyes fixed on the endless dark. For the first time in days, he did not feel like a dying man. For the first time, he felt a spark of life inside his chest, a spark given to him by the tiny alien girl who now sat beside him, her glow brighter, her presence steady like a small flame in the void. But then, the silence broke. The pod shuddered. The stars outside shifted as a shadow fell across them. a shape vast and terrible blocking out the light. The human's breath caught, his hands tightening against the armrests. He whispered, "What? What is that?" The girl's eyes widened, her glow dimming with sudden fear. She pressed her small hand against the glass, her voice trembling. "They found me." Before them stretched a massive vessel, black and sharp like a blade cutting through the void. Its hull lined with countless lights, its engines roaring silently in the vacuum, and behind it, more ships appeared, smaller but still enormous compared to their fragile pod. An entire fleet moving as one, surrounding them like predators circling prey. The human's heart pounded, sweat beating across his forehead. He whispered harshly, "Who are they? What do they want?" The girl's voice was heavy, filled with sorrow. "They are my people's enemies. Hunters, destroyers, they seek me. They seek the bloodline I carry. They will not stop until I am taken or until I am gone." The pod shook as a beam of light swept across it. Scanning every inch, the walls groaned. The glow from her earlier gift flickered. The human gritted his teeth, fear gnawing at him. "If they find us, we're finished. My pod can't even fly. Let alone fight." The girl's gaze hardened, her small body glowing brighter. "No, not finished. Not while I breathe." Her words carried weight beyond her fragile size. She stood, her glow spreading until the small pod felt warmer, alive. Her hands pressed to the walls. The symbols she had awakened before now flared like fire. The pod itself seemed to wake, humming louder, as if her presence was feeding its strength. The human watched in awe and fear, his voice low. "What are you doing?" She answered without turning, her voice clear. "I am calling, not to them, but to what lies within me. They will not harm you. Not while I stand. You gave me life, I will give you protection." Outside, the fleet tightened its circle, weapons charged, their dark hulls gleaming with deadly light. The human felt his breath quicken, his fists clenched. He was a man with no weapon, no ship, no power, only fear. But then he looked at her, this small glowing being who refused to bow, and something in his chest shifted. The fear bent beneath a fragile but steady flame, the flame of trust. The largest ship's voice cut through the silence, a deep vibration filling the pod. Mechanical yet sharp, unidentified pod. "Surrender the passenger within, she belongs to us. Resist and you will be destroyed." The human's heart sank, his throat dry. He turned to her, panic in his eyes. "They know you're here. What do we do if we refuse? They'll kill us both." But the girl stepped forward, her glowing figure small against the vast black ships outside. Yet her voice carried with strength, with power. "No, they will not. Because I say they will not." Her glow surged, filling the pod, spilling out into the vacuum. Waves of light rippled across the darkness, touching the enemy ships. Their hulls vibrated, their lights flickered. The human's eyes widened in shock as the massive vessels, which had moments ago seemed invincible, trembled before the glow of a child-sized being. The fleet's voice faltered, static breaking its tone. You are not a child, you are her bloodline." The girl's voice rang clear, steady as a star. "I am what you fear, and I am not alone. This human stands with me. He is under my protection. Harm him, and you will face me." The human's chest tightened at her words. His breath caught. No one had ever stood for him before. No one had ever spoken such power in his name. He stared at her, glowing like a star inside his broken pod. And for the first time he realized she was not just a survivor. She was something far greater. Something that could shake fleets. The silence stretched. The fleet motionless, their weapons still charged, but their voices gone. The human held his breath, waiting, his heart racing, wondering if they would obey her or destroy them both. The girl did not move. Her glow steady, her eyes fierce, she stood small but unbroken, and in that moment the human understood. This was no longer only his story, no longer only about hunger and survival. This was about something larger, something that tied their fates together against enemies vast and terrible. And whatever came next, he would face it beside her. The silence in space stretched long and heavy. The human held his breath, his heart pounding like a drum inside his chest. The massive fleet still circled the tiny pod, weapons glowing with deadly light. Yet none fired, none moved. They trembled under the glow of the alien girl who now stood tall inside the fragile craft, her small body blazing like a living star, her voice steady and sharp as she declared that the human was under her protection. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then slowly the largest ship lowered its weapons. One by one the others followed. The light of destruction faded, replaced by a strange silence that felt less like threat and more like respect. The human blinked in disbelief. His body still weak, his mind racing, he whispered, They're stopping. The girl's glowing eyes softened, but her stance remained firm. She pressed her palm against the glass and spoke with calm authority. You see me, you know who I am, you know the blood I carry, and you will not harm this human, because he is no ordinary creature. He gave me life when he had none for himself. He chose mercy in the face of death, and by that choice, he has become more than human. He is marked. He is mine. Her words spread like fire across the silence. The ships outside shifted slowly, their massive hulls tilting until one by one they bowed, not in surrender but in reverence. The human's eyes widened, his lips parted. He whispered to himself, They're bowing to her, to us. The girl turned back to him, her glow softer now, her expression calm but filled with emotion. You do not understand what you have done. Human, by giving me your last meal, you did not just save a life. You changed the course of stars. You reminded an ancient race what mercy looks like, and for that you are no longer forgotten in the void. You are remembered. The human shook his head, disbelief thick in his voice. I didn't do anything. I just gave food, that's all. Nothing more. But she stepped closer, her hand reaching for his, her small glowing fingers wrapping around his trembling ones. No, not nothing, everything. Sometimes the smallest gift carries the greatest weight. Sometimes one act of kindness can move more than weapons, more than power, more than fear. Your choice will echo, long after you are gone. The pod shuddered gently as beams of light reached out from the alien fleet, surrounding the broken craft. But instead of destruction, they lifted it carefully, cradling it like fragile glass, carrying it toward the largest ship. The human's eyes widened, panic flashing, but the girl squeezed his hand, whispering, Do not fear. They honor us now. Inside the vast ship, corridors of shining light stretched endlessly. Voices whispered in languages the human could not understand. Yet he felt no threat, no anger, only awe. He followed the girl as she led him, small but radiant, down the glowing halls. Every alien they passed bowed their heads, their eyes wide with wonder. Not at her alone, but at him too. The human's chest tightened, his throat thick. He had never been anyone important. Never a hero, never a leader, just a broken traveler lost in space. Yet here, among beings older than stars, he was seen. He was remembered, because he had chosen to give when he had nothing. At last they entered a great chamber, vast and silent, filled with towering figures who glowed brighter than the girl, their voices deep and ancient. The girl stepped forward, her small frame unshaken, her voice clear. This human gave me life. He is under my protection, and by our bond he is part of our legacy. The great figures bowed their heads, their voices echoing like thunder. So it shall be. The human who gave his last bread will be remembered. His kindness will be written in our stars. The human's knees weakened, his eyes burning with tears he had not expected. He whispered almost to himself, I just didn't want her to die hungry. The girl turned to him, her glowing eyes filled with warmth. And because of that, you gave more than food. You gave hope. You gave light, and now you carry a place among the stars, forever. Outside the great ship, the fleet spread across the dark like a constellation of fire, and within that endless night, a simple story was born, a story that would pass from voice to voice, from world to world, the story of a human who had nothing but gave everything, the story of mercy in the face of despair, the story of a bond that crossed the divide between species. And as the human stood beside the glowing girl, no longer alone, no longer forgotten, he felt it deep in his heart. This was his legacy. Not power, not survival, but kindness. Kindness that had changed a life, and through that life had changed the universe.